All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jessica Payne Live. I'm your host, Jessica Payne, and we've got a great guest for you today. We're going to talk all about getting in the mindset of the millennial, trying to break some stigmas there, demystify this sort of nebulous consumer and actually break it down into reality, because I know a lot of you are really interested in thinking like a millennial, trying to appeal to them. We all know they're this powerful generation of consumers, and in 10 years, they're really going to be running the market. So what better way to jump into the mind of a millennial than to actually speak with someone who knows them quite well and who actually works with them. So first things first, come on in, sit down. For those of you watching live, thanks for joining. For those of you joining me on the replay, thanks for watching week after week. A couple of things you can do. If you're on YouTube, jump to Facebook and click follow, see first. If you're on Facebook, do the same. That way you'll never miss a post from me. And also you'll never miss an episode live here, because I know it's one thing to watch it on the replay, but to actually come in, you can ask my experts questions. Okay, so PSA done. I'm going to bring on my guest right now. He's an amazing guy. He hails from the East Coast. Again, I think this is like my fourth or fifth East Coast, West Coast here contingent, but let me bring him on. Jeremias Maneiro, who hails from Rochester, New York, is a powerful realtor. He joins me this morning, and gosh, there's so much you do. You wear so many hats. You're a speaker. You're a licensed New York State real estate broker. You work with millennials. You have a speaking career. 28 years ago, you say, you started it when you were the ring announcer for your third grade elementary school circus. But what I love is you've got no fewer than 16 years experience in training salespeople to actually enhance their productivity. So guys, customer service, getting real with customers. And what I love on top of that is you're leveraging this little thing called social media to actually reach the next generation of consumers. So thanks and welcome to the show, Jeremias. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Jessica. It's my pleasure.
So I think we should just jump right in as people join or not. This whole thing about millennials, can you just jump off and break some stigmas for us? A lot of people come to me, so I work with brands in all different industries who are really frustrated more with themselves at their lack of ability to connect. They hear they should connect with millennials. They're a little clumsy about it. Share with us some of your biggest insight. What's it like to think like a millennial?
Well, I think the biggest challenge facing a lot of these companies, like you're saying, getting inside the mind of a millennial, is that they're still stuck to the traditional ways of thinking. You know, like, this is how we should do it because this is the way we've always done it. I don't get it. Why aren't we reaching the millennial mind? And it's like, think outside the box. You have to identify your core values with those of a millennial. You know, what do I value in a business? It's not whether they're a Fortune 500 company or, you know, they're the biggest brand like generations previous. It's, you know, do they care about the environment? Do they care about me? First of all, do they care about me, and what are they doing right now, you know, to solve my problem, and are they fun to work with? Really, that's one of the core things that I always try to translate to my clients. It's like, I'm in real estate, and it can be one of the most stressful situations of your entire life. But I can get you through it, and we will have fun throughout the whole process. So I think the biggest mistake that's happening is, you know, you're trying to focus too much on being super professional, and just, you know, have fun, and the business will happen, not the other way around. Like being super professional and like, oh yeah, why don't you work with our brand? That's not how it should be. You know, just be you, be real, be authentic, and the millennials will come to you. You can't close us. I think that's the other mistake people try to do. It's not a traditional sales process where you talk at us and then eventually you close the deal. I think if you provide valuable resources, eventually we're going to select you to do business with.
Yeah, can you go into that a little bit? Because I think the whole idea of closing is something really interesting, because I think my world is on social media, and I think it definitely goes outside of reaching millennials. Now it seems like we have to market differently. We have to sell differently. and maybe millennials were at the forefront of forcing us to change those habits, but I feel like it's now seeping into other generations. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the new, what are some of the behaviors that you're seeing that are different? And maybe you can translate it to what are some new best practices that you're implementing to sell now, to close, versus maybe what you were doing 5 years ago?
Well, I would say some of the new practices, and this goes for any industry. Think about the top questions that your client, your customer is going to have. And what's going to happen is even before they pick up the phone and call you, they're going to their favorite library in the world. It starts with a G and ends with Oogle, right? They're going to, for me, it's like, what is it like to buy a home? How much down payment do I need to have? You know, can I buy a foreclosure? All these questions that come up. So for me, I create content based on the questions that my clients might have, right? So that I can be found at what we call that zero moment of truth. Like, you know, they're thinking about buying a house, or they're thinking about buying your product or service. What question might they ask? If you can get them in that moment and then still just be a resource and provide valuable content, it's not a, you know, asking a closing question and saying, is tomorrow morning good or tomorrow afternoon better for us to meet? And it's like, eventually they're just going to go, you know, can I come in and we talk about purchasing your product or service or whatever it is. For me, it's, you know, hey, I want to buy a house. When can we start looking? So I think be the resource and be interested rather than interesting. I think that's the big difference. You know, historically it was you as a salesperson, you talk. Finally they go, I give up. Just let me sign whatever you have. And now it's a matter of asking open-ended questions, getting to know your client, your customer, and providing the service and, you know, showing them that you care. You know, not just, you know, it's about relationships. It's not about transactions.
So walk us through some of that's a perfect segue to, obviously, I'm sure social media is a big part of your wheelhouse in terms of how you market. Can you translate that into, you know, how you can be a resource using something like social media?
So it's extremely easy. You know, if you have a business page, I just create video. Video is the key to being face-to-face when you can't be. And people are going to do business with you if they like, know, and trust you. Before anything else, forget about, you know, your product, forget about you're the best company, forget about anything else. If they like, know, and trust you, you've won them mostly. You know, you're most of the way there. And I think video is a great way to humanize yourself, show that you have a personality, show that you have a sense of humor, and then show that you know what you're talking about. And so I demonstrate that by doing these videos and answering these questions. And with your page, you have a perfect way to just categorize them based on, you know, frequently asked questions by buyers. For me, it's frequently asked questions by sellers, tech tips, whatever it is. You can, you know, host that library on your business page. And now you have resources for people to come and keep coming back, because it's all about the content. You know, forget about algorithms, forget about boosting pages and all the rest of the nonsense that people are talking about in the last week or two. If content is king, if you have good stuff, they're going to keep coming.
That's a great tip, because I know a lot of people are kind of flailing at the moment, trying to, well, two things are happening. Either they're staying, it's like the used car salesman noodle balloon.
Totally.
Let's just fling bad advice. But what I think people are reacting one of two ways. One is what you just said. They know that they're not worried about these Facebook rules because they understand that content has always been. So I think the people so to you, it's what I said yesterday in my post. Folks who are watching, is if you've always put content and authenticity and transparency at the center of your content strategy, you really have nothing to worry about, especially if you've already got engagement. But to your point, Jeremias, it's sort of like if conversation hasn't been a priority, and look, it happens. We get busy. We build funnels. The funnels have been working for us. Automation, yeah. But, you know, if you're panicking a little, my gut is probably because maybe you haven't been focusing on content. You're going to have to get back to it. It's like getting back to the gym after New Year's. You're like, I hate this leg machine, but I know I have to do it. Right?
Right. Yeah. And I think more to what you said is focusing on the relationship. So I know generations previous, like the boomer generation, was business, personal. And there's a partition between the two. You know, I work 9 to 5, and once I'm done with my work at 5 o'clock, it's family time, it's personal time, and I will not commingle the two.
You're so right.
Now, right? I mean, in today's society, if you want to connect with the millennials, there's no difference really. All of my clients, also my friends on my Facebook, there's no like, oh my gosh, I don't want you to see that I'm with my family tonight at 6. No, part of my core values is that I value my family. Right. And people are going to do business with me because of that, not instead of. I mean, it's don't shelter yourself. I think that's another big mistake folks are making these days.
Yeah, it's
keep it personal.
They're growing pains. I think, we can't help but, I've always said people use social media, for example. People use social media based on their comfort level. And I'll have to add to that based on their lived experience. So if you're a boomer and you're using social media, it's, your definition of privacy or what you share, what you're comfortable sharing is different than someone like you or me. That being said, it's incredible what boomers will choose to share. And I'm like, really? So even the definition of privacy. I want to give a quick shout out to, hey, Rob. Rob Wheat is a loyal viewer and he's here. He's an amazing PR media relations guru. Thanks for watching, Rob. If you've got questions for Jeremias, hit us up. I know that you do a lot of media relations. I know him through our work with Nintendo together back in the day. So he gets the younger generation.
Oh, I love it.
So Rob,
Nintendo.
So Rob, if you've got insight to impart or a question for Jeremias about millennials, I feel like I could just step back and you guys could bond, honestly. But let us know. Let us know, Rob. Yeah, I'm really fascinated in terms of, look, you do a lot of speaking, you hold workshops, and your testimonials on your website really speak for themselves about, it sounds like you break a lot of stigmas and you turn on a lot of light bulbs for folks who've never sold to millennials before. Can you tell us a little bit about either share an anecdote or what are some of the biggest challenges that you're hearing from folks who come to your classes? Like, what's their biggest challenge?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges, thinking of millennials as real people.
Right.
They're like those millennials, or it's almost like they're little kids. I was down in the Long Island, New York City area, and they were like, well, why do we have to worry about millennials? They can't afford to buy a house here.
Wow.
I was like, what? I was like, I could, and so could a lot of my friends. So I don't think you want to prejudge. And as we grow up into adulthood, meaning get better jobs and move up the corporate ladder, we will be able to afford, I mean, we're affording it now, but at a much larger scale. So I think treating us like kids is the biggest mistake a lot of people make, or treating us in the sales process like they're our parents and they know better than what we want. So for example, I want to buy a house. I go to my real estate agent and I say, I want to buy a fixer-upper. And the agent, who's a boomer, says, oh, listen here, son. Let me tell you what you need to buy. You need something that's move-in condition. You don't want to have to do all that work. And I have picked up client after client because they've said, this agent is not listening to me. Wow. This is what I want, and they're not delivering. They're trying to tell me what I should have rather than what I want. And I think that's a big challenge, just because they may have kids that age, they may have grandkids that age, and so they can't help it. But I think you have to be cognizant of the fact that, treat them as equals, because that's what they are, and just listen. Ask open-ended questions and listen to what they're saying. Don't try to force what you would buy or what your values are, or what you think is important, because it's a different generation and we value different things.
Yeah, it's from what my interactions are, it's not that they don't value advice, but they've been given advice their entire lives, and they can't help but look at their situation in life right now and the cards that they were dealt. So even, helpful advice from other generations is, it's like they're kind of looking at it with skepticism, because it's like, well, look at your situation and look where I'm at. I know studies have shown that millennials really value being able to have a seat at the table and add their input. I've also read that, you know, they're one of the first to admit what they don't know, versus maybe my generation or other generations where maybe we didn't do that. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the differences in those conversations and how they're, take us through a millennial buyer or seller conversation and how it differs and what we should keep in mind from, let's say, when you work with another generation?
So you broke up a little bit. Could you just repeat the last part of the question?
Yeah, sure. I think it would be great to hear from you an example of, you know, what are some differences when you're working with a millennial buyer versus another generation buyer?
Okay. Yeah, so big difference is how we communicate to start, right? I always tell people the best way to communicate with a millennial is how they first communicated with you. You know, for example, Jessica, you and I, we may have Facebook messaged initially. And if we're doing something sales related, I wouldn't then expect you to send me an email or call me. A lot of them are like, no, this Facebook messaging, no, that's so impersonal. I need to get on the phone. I need to talk to you. And it's like, well, I don't want to talk to you. You know, if I wanted to talk to you, I would pick up the phone and I would call you. Okay. And I think also, you know, millennials prefer technology, obviously, and we need immediate gratification. So if you can't provide immediate service, you should implement some kind of systems or technology to make us feel like we're getting immediate service, or at least we're paid attention to. You know, previous generations, again, we talked about how different our work days are. So I think if you're looking to work with millennials over other generations, there is no typical time of day for them. And let me explain that, because now it's just my personal situation. I have two kids, two boys, 2 years old and 7 years old. So if you try to contact me from 5:30 to probably 8:30, 9 o'clock, I can't talk. There's no business that's being done, you know, because the kids are crazy. And, you know, but after they go to bed, I may be working from 9 o'clock until midnight. And so if I was working with somebody, you know, selling me something or a product or service, whatever it is, I might call you at that time. And if it's a previous generation, a boomer or an X, they're like, why are you calling at 9 o'clock at night? Because I have to. It's the only time I have, you know. So don't get bent out of shape if we're calling you at all odd hours. Sometimes it may be, I just want to call you and leave a message. I get it if you're not working. I would respect that if you have, you know, that's family time or you're in bed, whatever the case may be. But at least let me leave the message and know that might happen throughout the transaction. You know, so I think that's a big difference. You know, how we communicate and how our daily lifestyles are.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, and it's something I've certainly noticed. You know, it's like people use social media based on their comfort level, their lived experience, and let's add a third one based on their technical prowess. But I've certainly, I don't know about you, but I've started to really memorize. There are certain clients, and sometimes this goes outside of generation, but it's definitely more typical to millennials. There are some clients that prefer I communicate just via text on my phone. It's actually the easiest way to get a hold of them versus an email. I have a creative partner where I know if I need an answer, just like you were talking about, if you're with the kids, you're out of pocket. I have a creative partner. If he's in the studio, he's not on email. I know this. So I know if I text him, I'm almost going to get an immediate response back. I have other clients that prefer tried and true email, set up a conference call. Those tend to be my agency partners, traditional, right? And then I have other clients and partners that are the best and easiest way to grab them is Facebook Messenger, for example, or even Instagram. So it sounds like good advice for folks tuning in today is, like you said, know their availability. Well, I think it's just like, that's classic client service. Like, just know, just like I know you're on the East Coast. So I know, 9 o'clock my time is going to be midnight your time. So, I wouldn't pick up the phone and call you if you preferred phone. I'd probably send you an email. So those conscious things of like knowing what time it is in your part of the world, but also know not just what's convenient for me to reach out to you, but know what you prefer. So it's probably easy for me to whip out an email, but I know you'd much rather connect with me via Messenger. I'm going to have to change the way I do conversations, right?
Absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about the immediate gratification, if you will. Kind of break that open and walk us through what you mean by that. Because I think that's where some of the stigma might come from unfairly to millennials.
Well, I think it's just, you have to remember, most of us grew up with technology, so we don't understand why we can't push a button and get an immediate response. You know, if it's something we're coming to you because we value your opinion, and we feel like somehow we got to you and we feel like you know what you're talking about. So you should be able to give us an immediate response. If you say, oh, I don't know, and I need to, when I get back to the office, if you ever say something like, when I get back to the office, you might as well tell your, and your clients thinking, when I find a new person to provide this product or service. Like if I was in real estate and that somebody calls me and says, hey, what about this house? And I go, oh, when I get back to the office, I can answer that for you. They're like, what does that even mean? Get back to the office? Like, we should be able to just pull out our phone and some kind of app or some kind of program, get that answer within minutes. Mm-hmm. And I think whatever industry you're in, whatever you're selling, whatever you're providing, you should have the answer within minutes. If you don't, you just don't have access to the technology to do that, and you should get access to it. So I think that's a big part of it. We just don't get it. Like, we don't get how you couldn't provide an immediate response.
I think that's going to make a lot of people really uncomfortable because it's true. So what advice would you give for someone squirming in their seat right now, which is kind of me, like I'm squirming a little when you say that. What if someone doesn't have an immediate answer? This is really tactical. So what's the best way to work with a millennial if you don't have an immediate answer? Because it happens. How would you handle that situation without saying, when I get back to the office?
I would say, hold on 1 second. Let me find that out for you.
Yeah, transparency.
And I would either hop on something. Yeah, I mean, hold on. I'm going to find it out right now. I don't care if you're driving or wherever you are. You still should be able to grab a tablet, grab something. There's hotspots everywhere, mm-hmm. and get the answer for me. If it's something like, long-term financial plan, I get that we would know further research, but if it's something that we feel should have an immediate response, my advice would be brainstorm with your colleagues and say, okay, what are the top 20, 30 questions that we get again and again? And when you want to talk about creating content, there's your content, your list of content to create, just a video for each one of those questions. And somebody says, hey, what about this? What's the warranty on this product that you're selling? Hold on, boom. I just sent you a video about how that works. Thank you so much. So it's not that you have to, you're anticipating the answer and then providing the service based on, because it doesn't matter what business you're in, you're going to get the same questions over and over again. There isn't one time where you're like, oh my gosh, I've never been asked that question. And if it is, then that's maybe the one time you might say, hold on, let me find out.
That's such a good...
Transparency is important.
That's such a good point. I've actually never heard that advice shared before. It's easily forgotten. I think we all understand the value of customer service, but it sounds like I'm hearing a couple of things: immediacy, and even if you don't have the answer, you're saying, Jeremias, it's almost like just show that you are doing everything you can to try to troubleshoot in that moment. Because they will appreciate it. And look, sometimes you need to get back to a broker or a dealer or get back to your supplier, or let's say you're working with a member of the media. It's like you have to go back and clarify. It's fine. But it sounds like to me, at least show, and this goes back to your point, be interested, not interesting. Just show that you're interested in getting them as much information as you can up front, just because they will appreciate that versus you kind of delaying that.
Absolutely.
I also thought that was a great idea. I wanted to highlight, if you guys are starving for content, a great piece of advice is actually to go back to your frequently asked questions. That's great advice, Jeremias, and create a video for each of those. I mean, there you go. There's 10 video ideas that you can post on your Facebook, on your social media, on your website. And to your point, you're saying, again, to the immediacy, you get asked that question, how easy is it for you to answer it and then send them a link? Like, here's actually a 10-minute video. We actually break it down. Let me answer that question for you right now. And let me quickly just text you this video, and boom, they've got their problem solved, right?
Yeah, so I use a program called BombBomb, if you've heard of it. And what I really love about it is I have those videos hosted on BombBomb's server, and at any time I can, from my phone, from my computer, from my tablet, send that. So if somebody says, okay, we have our offer accepted, what's our next steps? I tell them our next steps, and then I follow up with a text to this video that tells them the next steps. And then I send an email with a video and a list of things. So then I'm covering all of my bases and all of my generations, and I'm communicating, transcending generations, if you will, all different communication styles, so that the message is delivered. I don't just send it one way because that may not work for that person.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. It's sort of like the immediacy, the delivery. I think video and the fact that we can record a video, everyone can record a video right now in one of these. Like unless you don't have a smartphone, which some people don't, like, we need to appreciate that. But the majority of us have a camera, and an HD camera at that, that can now live stream in the palm of our hands. Now, so to your point, video, it sounds like video, let's talk about that for a minute. It sounds like video has become a very powerful tool for you, not just to use to market your business, but it sounds like to actually deliver, to help you sell, to actually be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it really helps me to provide, I always say, a systematic approach to customer relations. So every time, each experience with every customer is exactly the same because I'm exceeding their expectations. If you leave it up to yourself to, okay, let me say it from my head every single time, the message changes, right? If you're like, I have the answer, and it's going to be different. It has to be. You leave it, but if you record it and you watch it, and I get it, it's difficult to watch yourself on video, but you watch it and you're like, okay, wait, I could probably make it a little more concise, make it better this way, repeat it again. So now the message gets better every time. And when you send it out, now your client gets the very best message each and every time.
Yeah, and that's a golden rule of communication. So it's like you have to be consistent on the message. We can deviate sometimes, but it's like, and I love it because that's efficient. You're cutting down on the time, whether it's brain power trying to reinvent the same conversation, or whatnot. But I love that. It's so you guys, again, for those of you who might be resisting this thing called video, for efficiency's sake, even try it out, because it sounds like Jeremias has really helped polish and improve his customer service because he can actually rely on those videos, right? So efficiency, if anything, I know it's scary to actually think about being on camera, but I love it because what it's doing is that can free your mind up, Jeremias, to probably troubleshoot or focus on what you need to deliver immediately versus having the same old conversation that you would have either way.
Yeah, and maybe just to add one thing to that, if you're a member of a team, let's say you're the front salesperson, and then you have admin that are helping you out throughout the process, it helps the customer to feel like you're involved throughout the entire transaction. It's not just they were sold and then they were passed on to somebody else that's providing the back end, delivery of the product or service, whatever it is. It helps them to feel like they're in touch with you all the time, which is the key. Nobody wants to feel like they're unimportant. Not that they are unimportant if they're passed on to a team member, but they chose to do business with you for certain reasons, and they want to see you involved with the process the whole time.
That's a great piece of advice. And I would think that, as maybe consultants or experts who are the face of their brand and business, that's probably always been a golden rule. But it sounds like to you, that rule really should apply to larger customer service teams. So it's at least help them feel as if you are still with them on the journey. And it sounds like video, again, is another great way to do that. Even if they are working with Clark from customer service, your video was just delivered to their phone, so they still feel like, oh, I'm still working with Jeremias, even though they're intelligent. They probably know you have a whole team backing you to help you out.
Right.
Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just they get that there's a team member that's helping them, but they still, in their mind, they're imprinted with your face every time a video is received. And I understand that everybody's fear of videos, and they don't like how they look, they don't like how they sound, but people are doing business with you anyways. Like, it's how you look. You go out in public every day. Who cares?
Yeah.
Let them see what you look like and let them love you for who you are. Be you.
Yeah. I love that. That's my mantra. Real is greater than perfect. It's really interesting to see people. Yeah. It's sort of like we chase this thing called perfection. If you want to talk about video, I think people are resisting it for one of two reasons. And to me, it really is telling. Younger generations like millennials, like they don't have any issues being on camera because they've always had one. Versus older generations, it's like, I don't know, because we think, depending on your generation, you think of camera and being on camera as maybe this big thing, like the Mary Tyler Moore show for some people, or Johnny Carson, versus others are like, I was on YouTube this morning and I spoke to 3,000 people, no big deal. But it's interesting, as people hesitate video for two reasons. One is they have a fear of being on camera, which is absolutely legit. Some people will never want to be on camera. I mean, it's more feared now, I think, than public speaking. The other thing I'm hearing is, and this is more on the marketing strategy side, so I'm curious to hear your point, because I know you've done video and then of course live video. People are resisting live video because they're afraid no one will show up. So the ego is alive and well, I think, with people who are choosing to resist video for one reason or another. Going back to video, because I know it's such a powerful tool for you, let's talk a little bit about what you do on your web presence, on your social media channels. You have some impressive views. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm actually going to bring up a screen to these numbers are crazy. Can you talk a little bit about what are some strategies that we can do, ideally, to get numbers that you have? But what should we remember? What are you doing that's delivering these numbers?
Well, for me, like the screenshot you'll share is from my speaking page, and for me, it's slow from maybe many businesses, but from December to January, that holiday season, and I have ADD through the roof. I can't sit and do nothing for the holidays like some people. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to create some content. I wanted to start doing these video type interviews like you're doing, but I thought, think of my client, who I service. What would they want to watch? If I was sitting home and I had the choice between binge watching something on Netflix or watching a video that I did, or that JMan seminars did, what would I watch? And so I think the subject matter is the most important thing. And so the numbers you're seeing here is, 7.6 thousand minutes viewed. That's with interviews because it's topics of interest, right? Forget about algorithms. I did not boost anything. This is just organic content from my business page, which, it's almost impossible to get any kind of engagement with your business page, as you all know. But I think if content is king and you start building an audience, and initially it's more of a marathon than a sprint, where initially, just like Jessica said, you're like, oh, you start putting this content out there and you're like, nobody loves me. Nobody's liking it. Nobody's commenting. And, my advice to you would be continue on, like keep the end result in mind. And if you keep on, eventually it's going to gain traction. And even if people aren't liking, commenting, engaging with your posts and or your videos, when you see them, like I was in Minnesota last week at a conference speaking, and people were like, oh my gosh, I love your videos. And I was like, could you please like and comment then that you like or love them, because you haven't commented one time. Mm-hmm. So I think the last thing that I would say in relation to that is, like, don't worry about the likes and the comments, because people are still watching. They're still watching, and you're still helping imprint yourself as an expert in your field. Being able to talk live, they see if this person can talk live about their product or service, they're a subject matter expert. Like they know what they're talking about. Because I don't go, hold on, Jessica, and start looking stuff up, right?
Yeah.
It's like you ask me a question about something and I have the answer from my mind. So that means, that I know what I'm talking about, and it helps solidify yourself as the go-to person in that industry.
So for those of you who needed to be inspired, I think Jeremias just really, I mean, look, let's all aim for the numbers that Jeremias is pulling in. Could you give an example of one of the videos, like describe one of the videos that has
Sure.
helped contribute to that spike?
So last Friday, I interviewed my series is called Millennial Who Talks because people want to know about millennials, and so I am interviewing millennial real estate agents from across the country, and not necessarily like top producing agents all the time, just agents that are successful because they've lasted more than 2 years. 80% of people will leave real estate before the 2-year mark. And so I interviewed them and I say, okay, how did you get into real estate? What prompted you? How were you successful? What were some of the strategies that you had in place? What is getting involved with leadership? Because typically some of them get involved with leadership and that, what has that meant to your business? Because that's one of the critical things to my industry is that millennials aren't getting involved in leadership. And lastly, if you could talk to yourself, your younger self, first getting into the industry, what kind of advice would you give them? And so last Friday, this agent, she's been in business 5 years, her own brokerage. She's a top agent. She shared her strategies and just real talk. It's no fluff. I think that's what resonates with people is just, like you said, being authentic and telling the real story. I don't want to hear that you went gangbusters right off the bat and now you're an immediate success, because that's not true. I want to hear that you struggled and that sometimes you had to eat bologna sandwiches or, but you kept working 16, 18 hours a day. It wasn't like an overnight success where just, I got my real estate license and now I'm rich. Like everybody thinks, you watch HGTV, that's the impression they get. I get my license, boom, driving expensive cars, selling $1 million houses. And that's not the real deal.
Yeah.
It can be a struggle.
Yeah. So bologna sandwiches, you guys, it's a good tip. Yeah. It's sort of like, well, everybody knows, like, unless you're the 0.001% that either goes viral or has a bunch of luck right off the bat, the majority of us struggle. So it's sort of like, it's so funny because myself included, why are we so nervous about sharing that part? Why are we so nervous about basically showing people how we earned our place at the table? It's sort of, and maybe this goes back to the old way of marketing.
Right.
We dazzle the Lamborghini and if I see one more YouTube where a guy's showing me his house with a Lamborghini, I'm like, you lost me, bro.
And like paid like with cash like this, like, I'm a millionaire. It's like,
and
gosh,
it's not to be said, you're appealing to the base, the desires of human. Fine. And that's why that's why there are lifestyle gurus out there that have millions of followers. But, congratulations on your Lamborghini, but it's almost like something tells me you probably had to work your butt off for that too. Why don't you lead with that? That's why I like folks like Gary Vee, for example, and he gets a lot of press, but he'll be the first to tell you how he'll be the first to put himself down. It's kind of amazing. He's very humble. He's very humble for how successful he is. So you're saying, share your story. You're saying that is something that actually appeals. Share your struggle.
Yeah, I mean, the real life struggle, I'm a speaker and I have other people who are aspiring speakers, instructors, trainers who contact me and they're like, oh, I see you're doing so well. And I feel like I'm never going to raise the bar. I never can achieve success in my mind. I always try to do better. Yeah. But it's like, I see you, it seems like overnight. I'm like, overnight? I've been grinding this out for like 6 years. Like when I first started, it's a New York term, but I would schlep all over New York State for next to nothing.
Canvassing.
Okay, just to get just to get the exposure. I would go speak for, $250 and travel 8 hours round trip because sure. I wanted to demonstrate that I could. And I had to, put in the work and really earn my stripes. And I understand that, but I don't want anybody to think when it comes to video or it comes to any business that right off the bat, you're going to do your first video. And like you said, it's going to go viral and everybody's going to be like, oh my gosh, they're so awesome. And it's like, no, you're going to have to crawl a little bit and grind it out. Just grinder, right?
Yeah,
You got to hustle.
Grind it out. It's certainly something, in full transparency, it's certainly something that I've struggled with, and I've shared slowly over time. It's interesting. It's sort of coming from a communications background and a PR background. I learned very, you learn to be measured. You learn to be somewhat calculated. You learn to stay on message. And the beautiful thing about now is you can still do that, but a key ingredient, it sounds like, to actually resonate with today's consumer is bologna sandwiches, is to share your struggle.
That's right.
Is to share, yeah. And it's interesting because if I think about, and I wonder if this is a good exercise for people watching, think about the last social media post you actually read through its entirety. It was probably someone sharing a very personal story, right? I see really successful marketers do this all the time. Sometimes it's like, all right, where's the pitch? But if they've been really authentic and organic with sharing their story and it's relevant, it's like, I don't mind being sold to because I can actually relate to what you just posted, right?
Yeah, the moral of today is bologna sandwiches.
Yep, that is the headline. It's like I have this. So for those of you, before we went on live, we were bonding about how we're similar age, and it's like I grew up on bologna sandwiches, sometimes salami, but like the Kraft, that's our generation. Now I would never force anyone to eat that, but I can see it. I can see the bologna. I can see the Kraft thing. You remember you peel the yellow, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
take one off the top.
When I first started in business at 20, I moved to New York City, and that was it. Like I had enough money to go to the corner bodega and buy bologna, and I had a toaster oven in my room because I had to rent a room when I first moved to New York.
Sure.
And it was bologna, some cheese, and whatever day-old bread I could buy, and that was dinner.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was my motivation to like, look at this. This is temporary. This is what I have to do this now because this is where the money's at. But that's motivation to keep on. I'm going to upgrade from bologna. I'm going to turkey next.
That's your new keynote, is how to upgrade from bologna. I feel like that would be a good pep talk, honestly, for millennials, because look, we're talking about selling to millennials, but like we should acknowledge the millennial. You are a powerful group. You deserve to be here. We should all listen to you. And you're probably eating a lot of bologna right now, or you're probably eating a lot. Yeah, you're actually probably eating better than we ever did, because bologna, we all know bologna's terrible now. But for me, it was ramen. I was totally top ramen. Yeah. What else? A lot of really bad Campbell's soups. No hate against Campbell's, but let's be real. But yeah, 79 cents. But so for those of you struggling, it sounds like, Jeremias, your advice to them is it's going to get better, work hard, grind, and you can upgrade from bologna at some point. I love that.
I love how you could say that with a straight face almost.
My
like
nearly 20 years in communications, I can say most things with a straight face. So that might be a nice thing to close on. What advice would you have for millennials, right, who might be just starting out, either in your industry or launching a business, because you're an entrepreneur, you've earned your stripes. For those who are watching, what are maybe two things that they can keep in mind as they grind?
Well, I would say, have a plan. Regardless of whether it's your own business or you're a salesperson, you should have a business plan every year and a strategy for success, with reserves, because the biggest mistake a lot of salespeople make is we ride this commission roller coaster and it's like, I'm rich, I'm poor, I'm rich. And it's like, you have to know that, you have to plan for that and know that there's going to be downtimes. And if you have your strategies in place long-term, that you'll be successful, and just know part of that business plan is to know that you may not be an immediate success, but if you plan for it, you'll be fine. Maybe you're
Right.
part of, like you said, the 0.001% that right off the bat. But the likelihood that that happens is probably slim to none. And if you plan accordingly and you just keep on keeping on, just know that, what's your motivation? If you always go back to your why. For me, with the gypsy behind me, like I have my kids every day, that's my motivation to know that, like, man, I don't want to do that video, or I don't want to make that sales call. Like, no, focus back on the why. And I have this little line here. It says, I thought about quitting, but then I noticed who was watching. And for me, it's, so two things: have your business plan in order, and then, focus on your why. And that will keep you going, because there's going to be times you're like, I don't know if I can do this. And I have a keynote called Feed the Wolf, where it talks about the wolf of courage or the wolf of fear. So, I mean, you got to make sure to feed the right wolf and just keep on keeping on.
Great pieces of advice, frankly, we can all use, because it's hard. It's hard out there, I think, for everybody, but especially for people really first starting out, certainly business owners, startups. Speaking of your keynotes, where can folks know? I'm getting a few questions behind the scenes. Where can people find out more about, because you do this whole speaking series, and not just in New York, but you're accessible. Where can people find out more information about your speaking series, and where can they get in touch with you?
Well, you could go to facebook.com/JMan Speaks. That's my speaking page on Facebook, or my website's jmanseminars.com. Then I also have a YouTube channel that's also JMan Speaks. But I would say start with the Facebook and then go from there. Yeah.
And for those of you who are really interested, we talked a little bit about it, but Jeremias does this whole great thing called, really improving I love it, Techspertise. So yes. I really encourage you to check out his website. You can actually see testimonials, which are kind of almost mini lessons. I loved it. I was watching all these testimonials, folks who have attended your talks, and that's where I first discovered the whole millennial who talk, which really sparked my interest in today's conversation. But follow him on Facebook. The handle's right up there. I'll link to your website in the comments so you can get in touch. And you're all over social media. So, and this goes to, whether you're buying or selling a house or not. I think, I've had several realtors on and brokers on the show, and you guys are always my favorite guests because I don't know, it's you've got that beautiful entrepreneurial spirit, and maybe it's because you work with people all day long, in real time. I feel like I can always learn so much from you. So
thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go and wrap this up. Any parting words?
I would just say we have to do the things today that others won't do, so that tomorrow we can have what others won't have. Les Brown.
Can't really top. That's it. Mic drop. Boom. Jeremias, thank you so much for joining us, folks. Again, if you're watching this live, thank you for joining. If you're watching it on the replay, if you're on YouTube, jump over to Facebook, and I'll have a link to JMan's profile. And then, of course, if you have comments for him, if you weren't able to join us live today, leave a question for me here. So awesome guy, right? I should just have nothing but realtors on this show. I tend to have good luck with them. He's pretty awesome, huh? He's got a great entrepreneurial spirit. So a lot of lessons covered today. It sounds like share your story is probably the thing that stuck out the most for me. It's something I've been certainly banging on about. Be real. That immediacy was a really strong message, I think. So how many of us were taught to stall? Especially in corporate America, we have these little methods that can stall, or I think a lot of it, if you can't answer a question right away, we have to be prepared to answer questions straight away. It's all part of client service. So great lessons today. Rob, thanks for joining. As always, you're always such a good support. A couple of things to wrap up. Again, if you are following here on Facebook, make sure you click up and click on following and click on see first. So we talked a little bit about it today, but and I recommend you tell your followers to do the same thing if you run a page or a group, okay? If you're a little nervous about Facebook's algorithm, make sure you tell your followers to do this one thing. They go to the top of the page, they click on following, they click on see first. That tells Facebook that they always want to see your posts, and they'll see you at the top of their feed. That's my tidbit today. It's not my idea. I'm relaying it to you. It's a great idea from Robert Stern, who I've linked to in other posts, but do that. And do that here. You can do that too if you just click on sending me a message. My little chat box has a menu, and it's one of the options there. Also, if you are inspired today to embrace this little thing called live video, we talked about it. This is a live video right now. You might be watching it on the replay. Go ahead and send, you can do one of two things. You can send me a message, click on the menu and open it up, and you can click on get free stuff. And that's when you can get on my VIP mailing list. And then with that, you'll get my free cheat sheet, 17 pages. I'm just giving it away for free, and a how-to tutorial. It's called How to Go Live on Facebook in Minutes. Okay, so if you're a little nervous about jumping on live, go on my messenger, sign up, and get put on my list. And with that, you get a gift. And it's this really cool cheat sheet with strategies and ideas, and then this how-to video. Because my goal for you is to embrace video, because it's one of the handful of things that Facebook loves right now. And I know a lot of you, you're telling me you're not delivering on your engagement. You're struggling to drive that conversation. And video, live video, as scary as it is, it's one of the easiest things you can do. And so the tech side is super simple, and I'm going to help you build confidence there. So this will show you literally what to do in a few taps, and how to go live. So it's all about embracing these new formats called video. So do that. You can also just jump in the message and text me and message me the words live show mastery to do that. Same. All right. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. This is Jessica Payne Live. I will be back next week. We've got a lot of different episodes. You'll also see me throughout the week doing this thing called stories. And if you haven't, scroll down and look at my last post, because I'll show you exactly how to do a live video and watch my story, because it's one of the most powerful things you can do on Facebook, okay? Have a great day, you guys. If you're on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe, comment. I'm really trying to grow my YouTube following, because look, face it, not everyone's on Facebook, and I want to deliver content to you, okay? So have a great day, you guys. I'll see you next time. Rena, thanks for joining. Watch this. You'll really love it. Rena is another powerful realtor here in Los Angeles. And so, look, I've brought all the realtors together. Good morning, she says. So I just roll deep in realtors. How cool is this? Brokers, realtors. Seriously, you guys make the best guests. It's because you guys, like, you're entrepreneurs. You've got that beautiful spirit. So hi, Rena, love to you. Jeremias, thanks again for joining. You dropped a lot of knowledge today. I'm going to go back and review. Rob, thanks so much for everything you're doing and all of your past support. Rena, I'll give you a little shout out, girl. Love you. You're powerful. Look up renabrode.com if you are interested in buying or selling a home in Los Angeles. She's as good as it gets. She's amazing. All right, you guys, have a great day, and I will see you next week. All right, take care. Bye. Signing off. Jeremias, thanks, man. You're awesome too. Rena, you're awesome.